quarterfinal bout. I'm Mark Jones, and this is day 7 of the boxing competition, so let's put things into perspective for you. 105 boxers began, and now just 55 remain with hopes of taking home a gold medal. Of those 55 boxers, 11 are from Cuba, and 7 are representing the United States. My partner again tonight at ringside is Alex Wallow. Alex, there have been some interesting surprises, some of them bigger than others so far in the tournament.
Well, Mark, the focus has been throughout this competition the success of the two superpowers, the Cuban team and the United States team. As far as the Cubans go, they will not realize their goal, their stated goal coming in, which was to win gold medals in every division because they had an upset loss to a Puerto Rican a couple of nights ago. For the Americans, the question right now really is, and we never thought this would be a question, whether they can come up with even one gold medal, and we'll have to really see how things go. Right now, they might be considered underdogs. But the final thing that surprised me, I think, throughout this competition has been the fact that outside of the two superpowers, the other countries have improved considerably.
What about tonight's first bout? Greg Johnson and Patrick Byrd. Now, if familiarity breeds contempt, this should be a pretty interesting match.
That's right. These two men met in the U.S.-Canada duel back in April, and in that match in Biloxi, Mississippi, Patrick Byrd was first given a 2-1 decision by the judges, but that was overturned by the jury, and Greg Johnson of Canada was declared the winner, and Patrick Byrd was quite upset and says he wants to set things straight tonight. Patrick Byrd of the United States team is the only returning member of the 1987 Pan American team. You see, in 1990, last year, he won the Olympic Festival. Patrick Byrd has more international experience than any member of this United States team. Greg Johnson of Canada, a 23-year-old born in Jamaica, now lives in Kitchener, Ontario. He has won 4 consecutive Canadian titles. And Greg Johnson, I think, qualifies for the most unusual hobby of any of the 105 boxers here. He said that he likes to knit sweaters, and I think if you knit sweaters, you better learn how to fight.
I'm not sure knitting sweaters is in the rule book, but here's a look at some of the rules of amateur boxing. Scoring is done on the computerized system by 5 judges. Both a standing 8 count and mandatory 8 counts are in effect. 3 8 counts in a round or 4 in a bout will end it. 3 cautions for the same infraction lead to a warning and a 3-point deduction. 3 warnings result in a disqualification. The third man in the ring, Jaime Vargas of Venezuela.
Gregory Johnson. In the blue corner, the United States, Patrick Byrd.
You see there the American coach, Kenny Lohr, and there is Patrick Byrd, tall, southpaw, stand-up boxer, good speed on his jab. His opponent, Greg Johnson, is a powerful puncher, likes to turn around southpaw himself every once in a while, and really sit down on a right hook. He has a vicious right hook when he switches.
That's Greg Johnson in the red top, Patrick Byrd wearing the blue shirt. Johnson from Kitchener, Ontario, and he is good friends with Lennox Lewis, a very good amateur fighter in his own right, a few years back.
And the 1988 gold medalist in the super heavyweight division. Now boxing unbeaten as a pro.
The start of round 1. This is a welterweight quarterfinal bout.
And even though a week into our competition, this is the first look at the welterweights.
Byrd carrying his hands high.
Of the 5 Americans that have gone out here in the competition already, Mark, I think the one thing that has marked all of them was that they just did not punch enough, whether they were intimidated by the crowd in the case of the 3 who lost to Cuban opponents or the heat. We must report this, that this arena tonight is the coolest it has been for any of the nights of competition thus far.
You saw a quick look at some of Johnson's punching power against the ropes as he nailed Byrd with one body shot, and he hit him. He hit him good with the right and puts him down.
And they're saying it was a slip, and I'd like to look at the replay. That there was a punch involved. He definitely was off balance and went down.
Johnson unloading with the right hand.
There's no question that Greg Johnson of Canada in the red has gotten out of the track. And again, almost a carbon copy right hand there. Patrick Byrd came in and Johnson countered and knocked him off balance.
Both fighters hammering away against the ropes. Johnson really coming with that right.
Good Patrick Byrd right jab as Johnson came in. He's got to use that jab and use it stiff to keep Johnson on the outside. There, Patrick lunged a little bit, but he did score with the left.
Alex, you surprised that Byrd is a little more busy with that right jab of his at this point in the first round?
Well, I really am surprised. I don't think he's been busy enough yet, Mark. I just don't think he's taken command of this bout the way he's capable of. He's got that kind of statue-like pose there, and it's great to start with, but you have to let your hands go.
Byrd falling short of the mark with a couple of punches. Circling to his left now. 1 minute to go in the first round of action in this welterweight quarterfinal. Patrick Byrd in the blue top of the United States and Greg Johnson of Canada in the red.
Both men a little short with their jabs. Neither man really on track. Neither one has the distance yet. And as you can see, both men waiting.
Good right gets in by Johnson, and he doubles up on it. Little infighting, and Byrd missing with the left.
There's a saying about rematches that they never live up to the first bout. I didn't see the first bout between these two, but they're very tentative right now.
Johnson was sent reeling back into the ropes, but it looked like a slip. So we wind down to the end of the first round. A cautious one, Alex.
Let's take a listen to the corner of American welterweight Patrick Byrd and his coach Kenny Lord.
Man, you heard him there, man. You seen that, didn't you? Huh? I told you to uppercut underneath and just take that little half step, all right? Dig it and then follow up, okay? You got to get off first, okay, babe? You can't wait on him. Get the head.
Let's take a look at that action in round one when Patrick Byrd went down to the canvas. There's the right. And you saw the punch land. It is possible that the referee said that under amateur rules that you must hit on the front of the body with the white portion of the gloves. And because that punch seemed to land on the back of Patrick Byrd's headgear, that perhaps is the reason he disallowed the knockdown. Now let's take a listen to Johnson's corner.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Make something happen. Let's go, Greg.
You might have heard them say at the end of that round, nothing happened, make something happen. Not a lot of clean blows in that round.
The start of round two. Johnson in the red, Byrd in the blue. You know, earlier before the coaches of the Canadian team were telling their fighter to punch inside, to stay busy inside. Johnson with a right hand that misses. The referee steps in and cautions Byrd
for pushing the opponent. Yeah, and that was for a slap. You saw the sort of hook, the wide punch right hand by Greg Johnson. Did not land with the white portion of the gloves. Second caution to Johnson for that offense. One more and he gets a warning and a 3-point deduction.
Alex, speaking of caution, are you surprised that both fighters are this cautious this late into the second round and throughout the fight?
Absolutely. I think it looks like they're both just trying to kind of stay in contention and then see who can win the third round to determine who wins the fight. Neither man has taken over. Patrick Byrd, a lot of posturing. Patrick has a tendency sometimes to drop his hands all the way down. I mean, his hands are low there, but that's not as low as he sometimes gets with his hands.
If being cautious is the strategy, who do you think it favors?
Well, I'm not really sure. I don't think either man can afford to be cautious. I think they've got to go out and try to take over the bout. I think it's a detriment to both of them.
Johnson trying to measure Byrd. Hit a glancing right off his chin. We talked about the fact that this is a rematch from a bout in Mississippi. At the same bout, Johnson's brother, Chris Johnson, defeated Byrd's brother, Chris Johnson. Chris Byrd, pardon me.
That's right.
It's like a family feud. I'm getting mixed up.
It is confusing. Both men have brothers who box on the national teams at a very high level.
A slip there.
Patrick Byrd hit Greg Johnson when he was down and acknowledged it, apologized. Greg Johnson accepted the apology. All the sign language of amateur boxing. There you see for the first time Greg Johnson in the red of Canada goes southpaw. And when he does this, he loves to throw that right hook, as we talked about at the opening. Wings it again and goes back to the orthodox right-handed stance. He really can punch with that right hand when he goes into the southpaw stance.
Byrd with his hands held high. He got hit with the lead right. Wasn't hurt by it. Comes back with a right jab of his own that falls short.
Very, very little meaningful action. Dull bout. There, good countering left by Byrd. Greg Johnson came in and a good right jab, but Johnson keeps coming. And there, Patrick Byrd of the U.S., he can apologize, but he's got to stop apologizing and start listening when the referee says break.
Well, we're winding down on the end of the second round.
Still pretty indecisive, Mark.
Back for round 3, and Canadian coach Taylor Gordon told his fighter that you're looking like a champion.
And the referee has stopped the action right now to have American coach Kenny Lohr mop off welterweight Patrick Byrd. The clock has not begun yet. Now we're mopping off the Canadian. This is just part of the differences between the amateurs and the professionals. There's everything must be exactly proper in the amateur game.
And Byrd with his back to us in the blue top. Johnson from Kitchener, Ontario in the red.
And if you haven't been watching up to this point, you haven't missed very much. There's been very little meaningful action, very little scoring. And you just have to think with so few punches being landed that this bout is going to be won in the next 2 minutes and 37 seconds.
You can forget about what I said at the top, where familiarity breeds contempt. Very little of that in this bout.
Yeah, I think in this case, familiarity bred a little bit too much respect.
Johnson missing just short with a right.
Talk about familiarity. We're talking about the match these two men had in April in the U.S. Canada. Good chopping right on the end of that. And that's what Greg Johnson of Canada has to do. In fact, that's what both boxers have to do, and that's keep throwing punches.
Byrd countered.
The man who's busier in this bout is going to be the man who's going to get the decision at the end.
Byrd countered nicely off the ropes that time.
Threw a nice stiff jab in that exchange.
Johnson coming in and missing. Both fighters winging and losing their balance.
You see there, Patrick Byrd dropping his hand. I have no idea what Patrick has in mind when he does that. He's in no position to punch, and clearly he's in no position to defend himself.
Now his hands are high.
You can get away with that kind of nonsense at boxing in low-level matches, but not at this level.
Johnson moving forward, trying to measure his opponent. Referee cautions the fighters. It's interesting that this is a rather slow fight, and the Cuban crowd here really does appreciate boxing, even if there isn't a Cuban involved.
Yeah, they're not booing this yet. They could very well do that. I mean, it deserves some booing. A little whistling there. But this crowd does appreciate good boxing. They know good boxing. A little right hook there by Patrick Byrd, and that's the key for Patrick, is to keep throwing his hands at the end of an exchange. Oh, it's not always who starts the exchange. Sometimes it's who finishes it. And a caution there, a strong caution by the referee to Patrick Byrd of the United States in the blue.
No doubt that the computerized system is going to get a test here when we tabulate the final scores.
The system's fine. The five guys pushing the buttons around the ring.
And now
there is a point, a warning being issued to the, I guess to Patrick Byrd for holding. I didn't see three cautions to that, but it looked to me like the caution was to Patrick Byrd, and that third caution, apparently, as I say, I didn't see three, means a warning and a 3-point deduction. Forget about the old days in amateur boxing when a warning meant a 1-point deduction when you were in a 20-point must system. This electronic scoring means that they take away 3 scoring blows. And in this bout, that may be all that landed.
And a very, very, very big factor in the final tabulation. Johnson moving in now. trying to muster something.
Now we should tell you also that warning that you saw does not have to be deducted by the 5 judges at ringside. In fact, 3 of the 5 of them must agree with that warning to make the deduction.
That's the end of the third and final round. And it ends the same way it started, with both fighters missing. Look at some of the other members of the United States boxing team.
And you see Greg Johnson, and you just think he has to have a reason to be happy. He was busier, he landed the more obvious blows, and with this electronic scoring system, you have to believe that those kind of obvious blows are the ones that get the attention of the judges. Remember, 3 out of the 5 judges at ringside have to push a red button or a blue button within 1 second of each other. Here's the decision. Yes. Greg Johnson of Canada, the winner on points 15-4, a wide margin, and half of this American boxing team has been eliminated from the Pan American Games.
Nobody would have ever thought that coming into this competition. Now let's go back to Nick Charles in our studios.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're going